Hi, this is Christy Milford. This is my math lesson, and it is about multiplying one-digit numbers times the multiples of 10. I intended to teach this to my entire class, but the weather kept many of my students home, so there was about 10 students. This is the first session in a lesson, so it's very short. It's an introduction, so we don't get too in depth. It was just basically introducing the concept to my students. So here is the very beginning.
There we go. We're talking about using place value to multiply. Okay? We're going to be multiplying larger numbers than what we're used to. And after we finish learning how to use place value to multiply, we will be starting division. Okay? So pay attention.
My students are very excited to start division. They are a little bit behind the rest of third grade because they had a full-time substitute before I was there. So they are very excited to start division. All right, let me fast forward a bit, about the 2.5 minute mark. I did hand out before we started, I handed out some manipulatives. I handed out hundreds charts, and I handed out base 10 blocks for us to use to count. My students also have math books in front of them that they write in, and they have access to dry erase markers and such. All right, here we go.
Across the row, I would have 100. Yes, name.
I got 11 10 blocks.
It's okay. I just gave everybody a random number.
So that means I got 110 blocks.
That is correct. All right.
150.
All right, thank you. We're good. You don't have to announce it to the world, okay? But if you take a look at your hundreds chart, if you want to count by tens, you can count right down the side column, right? I can start at the top and say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So this is one tool I can use. Nick, please pay attention. This is one tool that I can use to count by tens. Okay?
So, some of them were familiar with hundreds charts, but many of them were not. So we spent a little bit of time going over how to use them. We haven't been using them very much in our recent lessons, so it was a nice refresher. This is a hundreds chart is something that they are allowed to use during standardized testing. So I want them to become very familiar. They're allowed to use manipulatives. They're not allowed to use multiplication charts, but they can use hundreds charts. They can use base 10 blocks. They can use counting cubes. So I'm trying to familiarize them with those items. So I did show them how the chart was used to skip count. That's something that we're going to have to refresh for sure because it's not something that they all seemed like they were fully comfortable with. All right, now let me fast forward a little bit. All right, now we're getting into the main problem that we're going to be solving today. We've already talked a little bit about what the important numbers were. Students can highlight them in their books, or they can underline, circle, whatever they need to identify what the important information is. And then we're going to start talking about how to solve the problem.
What else might I highlight? Nick,
20.
20 books, right? 4 stacks of 20 books. That's fairly easy when we think about it. It sounds difficult because 20 is a large number, but I bet we could figure this out pretty easily. All right, so now you can use your squares, your 10 blocks, or you can use your hundreds chart, or you can draw a picture. I want you to solve this problem. I want you to tell me how many books are there in all. Okay, you're going to be working at your table. I'm going to come around and look. Okay, you can work together with your table mates to tell me how many books there are in all.
All right. So what I do usually when I'm teaching a lesson like this is they solve them in their books. They can talk to the people next to them if they're confused. And I go around and I look to see what strategies they're using. And then I select a few students to come up and share their strategy. And for the most part, they're only using 2 or 3 strategies. But I do try to find people that are using strategies that are very straightforward so that they can draw them on the board and they can explain them or I can explain them. So let me fast forward to that part. Oh, let me see. I'm sorry, this is a second question I should have said that we're solving when I call them up to solve for themselves. All right, here's the second question that they're going to be solving. Um, I asked them to solve at the table just like we did before.
Answer, okay? I want you to do this on your paper so I can see that you're working.
Can I just have one?
Sure.
I want to go start reading.
This is number 6. Okay, throw them away. They're no good.
This is me selecting students. Now, I'll tell you that every time I do this, the students who don't get picked get very upset. But I try to remind them that I choose different students each time. I try to find different strategies. And that, I try to make sure that at some point everybody gets to get up there and share what they've learned. This is my friend Derek. He's going to write very small, so you won't be able to see what he's writing, but he's doing a repeated addition strategy. This is my friend Aria. She's going to do drawing a picture and using skip counting as her strategy.
All right, if your method matches, that's great. If you use a different method, that's great too. Okay, take a look at Derek's method. Derek, hold on, first I'm going to write the equation. The equation is 6 times 30. Okay, that's what we know. We have 6 gift bags, and there's 30 prizes in each bag. Okay, Derek said, I'm going to do repeat addition. Okay, but he didn't just write out 36 times. He said, first I'm going to find out what 32 times is. So here it is. 32 times is 60. Okay? And then he said, well, if 32 times is 60, right?
It's a little confusing. As I'm listening back, when I'm saying 32 times, it sounds like I'm saying 32. I also said 36 times, which sounds like 36. So I'm going to try to be more clear about those separations in the future. If I'm saying the number 36 times, maybe I'll write 36 different times so that they can see what I'm talking about and not just hear me saying 36 or 32. All right, there is a moment at the end that I would say is probably the worst moment because I start to lose my class. They're starting to get a little bored with this lesson. So they're not paying attention or they're calling out. One of my friends is drawing all over his desk at this point. So sometimes it's hard when we're doing these less exciting lessons or ones that require less hands-on work. I just lose them a bit. I do feel like this ability to explore student thinking is nice. They're working individually at their tables, they're sharing information with each other at their tables, but being able to show off what they know, but also to see how different the thinking can be. Some of us are still doing repeated addition for every problem, and that's okay. We're trying to get more comfortable with the strategies that we're using, right? Some of us are drawing pictures. Today's lesson was mainly to let them know that there's going to come a point where we're going to have to change our strategy, right? I can draw a picture, what is 2 times 8, but drawing a picture 2 times 80 is a lot more difficult. I'm not going to draw 80 dots 2 times on my paper. That's just not something that's going to be easy to do. So we're trying to work on different strategies. And I can't zoom in here, but when I showed them how to do this drawing a picture, I said you can try, instead of drawing a picture and then drawing the number of dots, right? Instead of drawing 6 bags and putting 30 dots in each, you can draw 6 bags and write the number 30 on each bag. And then when you're skip counting, you're saying 30, 60, 90, right? So you're moving up. You still have that visual of how many's in each bag, but you're not drawing 30 dots in each bag to represent. There was another moment where I showed them how skip counting can work. But it's a little bit more tedious. Let me see if I can find it. I showed them how you can draw the picture just one time and count it many times in order to get to where you're going, but it really is a tedious process. So I was trying to show them, like, if you want to do it this way, you can, but you need to keep track of how many times you counted them, right? This problem that we're doing here was 8 times 80. So I've drawn my 80. Each of those represents 10. So I've drawn 80 here, and then I'm going to count them 8 times, which is tedious, but you can see it here.
By twos?
Yeah, by
Tens.
20s. I can skip count by 10s too, right? I'm gonna skip count by 20s, but I need to make sure that I do it 8 times. So what I'm gonna do is make a tally every time I finish counting. So I'm gonna say 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200, 220, 240, 260, 280, 300, 320, 340, 360, 380, 400.
All right, you get the idea, right? I'm just trying to demonstrate how you can skip count and keep track of that when you're skip counting large numbers. I will say that my friends are still, some of them still deep in the practice of skip counting. Some of them cannot skip count by 2s or 5s or 10s. Some of them have no problem skip counting. So that is also something that we're practicing. When we get in line to go to lunch, we count. I say, starting with me, 2, and then the next person says 4, 6, 8, or we try 5s, we try 10. So we're practicing. We're trying to get that to be more automatic. And I do remind them all the time, like, if you have time to watch videos at home, if you're on YouTube and you're watching people play with toys and unbox things, then every once in a while you can type in skip counting by 2, skip counting by 5, and you can practice those skills too. So I'm hoping that we're going to get a little bit more automatic with those skills. All right. I would say my final takeaway from this is obviously I wrote my lesson plan before Thanksgiving break, and then I came back to this video, or I came back to this lesson after Thanksgiving break, and I didn't review everything like I should have. And when I got to the end, I just didn't realize we were at the end. So there's this very abrupt moment where I'm like, oh, well, that's the end of the lesson. So definitely I'm going to try to be more mindful in the future of saying, like, okay, well, usually I have something to grade each day, but since this was the first lesson, there's nothing to grade. But usually I say to them, I'm going to grade, page 150, number 8. So make sure that when you're doing that, that you're checking your work and you're doing your best work, and then you're going to turn that into me. That way they know. So that's usually how we end a lesson. And then as they're finishing them, I'm grading them. I'm looking over what they've done. And if they've done what they're supposed to do, then they just go on and get on their I Ready My Path. But if they haven't done the work correctly, then I'm calling them back to my table and showing them individually, one more time to reinforce the concepts that we've learned. All right, thank you.